Welcome to BaldHeaded Metal, guys, and welcome back to another reaction. This time around, I kind of saw Godsmack released a new song, and I became a little bit nostalgic because I remember when the album Awake came out, and I was really quite addicted to that album, even though I always thought Godsmack is kind of Disney metal. Always on that new wave with like Limp Bizkit and all these other bands like Korn and Slipknot, which for most of the part I didn't really go towards those bands that really enjoy them. But there were songs that stood out and I really enjoyed. And I gotta say, Awake from Godsmack, I liked. Out of all those bands, I probably like System of the Down and Godsmack the most. And that being said, I'm just excited to see kind of what the new music is like. And what am I gonna feel about this music being much older now and a little bit more relaxed about my music taste. With that being said, those who are new to this channel, just be prepared. I do voice my opinion. I do it for the sake of conversation and more discussion how I personally feel about the music rather than outright criticism. Let's get into the song and see what we got.
You've always told me that you know me, but you don't really know me at all. You just played me and betrayed me and showed no sympathy at all. Why can't you just please surrender? Surrender what you promised. Surrender what I need. Why can't you just see that sweet surrender?
Yeah, it's a slightly softer song than I'm used to from Godsmack. And what I do have to say, I always liked his vocals. Especially, I remember when I Stand Alone came out with a Scorpion King. Oh man, I remember how big it was. Um, yeah, this I think Godsmack is a great gateway band from people who don't really listen to rock or let alone hard rock and heavy metal. I think they're a great gateway band because they do have softer vocals, they do have softer moments. It's hard for me to get somebody to listen to even something like Black Sabbath right off the bat because they can be a lot in terms of how much they present, or Metallica or Megadeth. You have to kind of ease people into it. Although Metallica Black Album is another very good gateway album.
One time, surrender to me. So will you stand tall and be accountable and tell that little girl you like how you lost it? I'm so exhausted, and this is where I draw the line. For the last time, why can't you just please surrender? Surrender what you promised. Surrender what I need. Oh, baby, why can't you just see that sweet surrender in me? One time, surrender to me.
Yeah, this is like super radio friendly kind of music. Um, I don't think I like this song at all, to be honest. Although I can see why people would enjoy this. It's just, it's like that. The reason I never liked the Godsmacks, Limp Bizkit much, or System of a Down is the only band I've respected. I didn't like Slipknot, Korn, because a lot of them relied on simplicity of writing songs, so they're catchy and they have nice hooks to them and they're memorable. Uh, so they're easier to get into. They're for a bigger audience, so like on a bigger net. I've always liked niche weird things, like that you kind of get into. Like, well, what the hell am I listening to here? I never heard this before. I've always liked those kinds of things in rock and heavy metal, and that like '90s, late '90s and 2000s era, it was just a stream of like Nickelback and again, I think they all. I'm not gonna be one of those people that say that they are trash and you shouldn't listen to them. I think that's stupid. Every music has its merit. It's just, I think there's levels to it. It doesn't make me better than somebody else, but I am more experienced when it comes to heavy metal, right? I've listened to a lot of rock. I grew up with classic rock and rock of the 80s, as well as the metal of the 80s, 90s, and current metal. I've grown up with that music and I've heard so much of it that I have somewhat a presentation of what's out there. So when I hear something like Godsmack, I'm like, well, this is very simplistic in comparison to what I've heard, or something like Disturbed. It's very simplistic to what I've heard. I think that's why System of a Down stood out, is because they put a spin on it, and they had this kind of Armenian singing along with their kind of very crazy switches. It became something more. Linkin Park to me was another band that was kind of like, it was in the mold of what would capture younger audience, a more, again, a bigger net. It wasn't made for the more curated listener. And again, a curated listener doesn't automatically mean you're better. I hate that when somebody tells me, well, you actually don't know, you should like this painting. Well, I don't like this painting. I've seen other paintings. I don't, I can have an opinion, but at the same time, there is something to more nuanced music. I believe so.
I'm done wasting time. So sick of your lies. And every time you seem to change your mind, manipulate. So quick to hate. A true master of your art you demonstrate. But I need a break from you. I need to separate from you. I need to keep my faith and do all the other things I promised to. Why you always make me wait on you? I really need a break from you. I need to keep my faith and do all the other things I promised to. I really need a break. I really need a break. I really need a break. Why can't you just please surrender? Surrender what you promised. Surrender what I need. Oh, baby. Why can't you just see that sweet surrender in me? One time, surrender to me. Surrender to me. Surrender to me.
Yeah, you know what it is too? I liked Awake. I mentioned Awake and even Faceless, because they had a heavier sound to the band. And despite that, songwriting wise, it's about as good as it was before. It's just the heaviness and the impact. With like songs like Vampires, man, I love that song. I thought it was a really cool song. I feel like they were a little bit more inspired. And I also think this style of rock, I didn't know that people really listen to this any kind of thing anymore. I don't really see uh this like 90s 2000s, like I don't see the evolution of rock music really. Kind of seems to be like stagnating in a circle, kind of doing the same thing. Or the bands that kind of stick out actually dig into the past and recreate sounds. I just remember so many bands like in the 90s into like Foo Fighters, and it's like a lot of different bands, let alone that I did not listen to many of them. I just was aware of them. I was always the just quintessential heavy metal guy, very much closed in my own box of rap, uh, techno, and heavy metal. Let me guys know what you think. Maybe you had also a similar experience with Godsmack. Perhaps you liked them in the beginning, or perhaps they were your gateway. That'd be kind of cool to hear a story. Or what was your gateway into rock and heavy metal? I think into rock, it was definitely Deep Purple for me, and into heavy metal, of course, I think it's Manny's example, and that is Metallica. And another rock band I absolutely adored with all my heart was Kiss. Even knowing how much of a dick Gene Simmons is. So I was a very big Peter Criss fan when I was younger. But again, let me know, guys, what you thought personally as well. If you enjoyed this reaction, please subscribe down below for more. Let me know what your requests are as well. And make sure to take care of yourselves and keep it metal.